Welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen. It's really two programs in one. This is a series that appeals to your creative side. Food that is sumptuous stuff. How could that be? This is a program about people who want to eat healthy and reduce calories. Actually, it's about food with an aromatic quality that fills the nose. Oh, sure. But it's also about keeping my arteries clean by reducing fat. But it doesn't mean a thing if the food isn't rich and colourful. Maximize the flavour. Okay, but I must have healthy food that I can cook in minutes. I must minimise the risk. So welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen, where we get our heads together just for you. You know, I really have a fantastic time in this series because I'm getting to know who you really are. I mean, truly, the most wonderful opportunity is to be able to know somebody is at the other end of the tube there, and hi, like this. And because of this food preference sheet business that we're doing, to get to know what you like to eat and how you like to cook it is terrific. You know, I feel real sort of connected. Hope you do too. All right. Now, let's throw that away just at the moment because I want to talk to you about Joanne Davis. Now, Joanne Davis is unique in all the people we've had. Her mum, on her mum's side, is Irish and Welsh, and on the dad's side is German and Danish. But the most important thing is she's been an assistant to a nurse's aide, and she's been living in and looking after people for over 30 years. And it was during that time when she was watching the show and sent in one of these food preference sheets. And then right after that, suddenly, she loses her job, and she winds up in a shelter. This is not good news at all. She's going to go in transitional housing, which I hope by now that you are, perhaps, but, and then on to better things. But it's such a shock, isn't it? Now, if you happen to be in the shelter at the present moment, Joanne, just, or those people around you at the moment, hey, around Joanne, go and give her a hug at the moment, because this is her dish. She wrote to me, you've seen, she told me about this corn quiche that she had made for her family and how they just loved it and thought I might be able to fix it. And I'm going to do that just now. As a matter of fact, what I did was I noticed that in your form you said USA Southern, and I thought, that sounds interesting. You like the idea of the rice crusts and you like to bake. Macaroni cheese was one of your favorite recipes until you blossomed to 400 pounds and then cut that out, and now you've lost 100 pounds in 1 year. Congratulations. And you want to lose another 100. Wonderful. Mustard, cilantro was part of what you liked, and chicken and eggs. I didn't know which came first. Orange, and then sweet corn and bell peppers. And I looked at that and I thought, yes! I know what we can do. And so we put the corn and the quiche together, and I have this, would you mind putting down the thing that changes the channels just for a moment? Put it as far away from you as you can. Thank you. All right. This is what I've called the dish. Corn Quichetador. Do you like that? Oh, come through and I'll show you how it's made. Some things I realize are unforgivable, and that's probably one of them. Here is the springboard idea. Now, the springboard idea this time is to make the quiche crust, instead of with the flour and the butter, or the flour and the lard, whatever it is, you make it with a little cheese and with some boiled rice. Now, strange as it may seem, you might have seen this before as a technique. This is the technique, and it's very simple. Into the bottom of this parboiled rice, which is well seasoned, I'll show you that later on, you then put several ingredients. You can fry some onions or leeks or shallots or whatever like this. You can put some, that sweet red pepper, all right, which has been roasted. You can put a little bit of oregano in there or whatever kind of herb you like. Put some, you know, Canadian bacon in. That's rather nice, actually, when you do that. But whenever you've put that into the bottom, you need about 1.25 cups full of filling. Then you've got to have 3 things in these proportions to go with it, and then you can change it just how you like. The first one is an egg substitute, and you get an egg substitute which is 1 cupful. The other one is 1 cupful of this is evaporated skimmed milk, non-fat. Okay? And this in the middle is 2/3 of a cup of a vegetable puree of some kind, and it could be carrot or, in this case, corn. I mean, it could be parsnip, whatever. And all you have to do is just simply do that. You add those two together, and it becomes a custard. And then, when you've got the base part fried and in the bottom there, then you just pour in about 2/3 of the custard, put it in the oven for about 5 minutes to set, and then pour the rest of it in, and then put it back into the oven to cook. It takes 25 minutes altogether. And you bring it out and let it rest for 5 minutes, which is a nice thought, and then slice it. And it is just wonderful. Okay? Got some ideas in mind, the sort of things you'd like to do? Let me show you what we put together for Joanne, all right? Let's see what's on the menu.
Today on Graham Kerr's Kitchen, corn Quichetador, a rice and cheese crust filled with sweet corn custard, garnished with baby corn and sweet red peppers.
All right, Joanne, now, hope you're in your own place real soon and be able to test it yourself. This is how we get all those ingredients together. First of all, the rice is really a long-grain converted rice, and it's just been washed off and then put into plenty of boiling water for about 10 minutes. In fact, exactly for 10 minutes. Then you pour it into this strainer, put it on the top, and put a lid on the top of that. And it virtually steams there, and each one of these little grains, which is all tight and kind of, you know, kind of cooked, then goes like this and puffed without being flaky. You know, there's nothing worse than that kind of flaky looking grain. So it's all perfectly done, absolutely separate and fluffy, and one of the best ways I know of actually cooking rice. All right, bowl on the side, drop that in the top. Now 2/3 of a cup of rice will make exactly 2 cups when it's cooked by that method. Okay? Now, we're going to season this, because just to put that in just on its own really wouldn't be good enough. A little bit of salt, first of all. And when it comes to salt, you know, if you were walking down the road, 1, 2, 3, 6, if you're walking down the road and 4 people passed you, the chances are statistically that one of those 4 people would actually be hypertensive. That's with high blood pressure. That's about 1 in every 4 of us. And you just never really know. Sometimes it happens later on in life. And if you are hypertensive, you need to watch the sodium. And that's exactly why I watch it like this. And you see, my wife Trina is hypertensive. Now, when I take this little thing here and I do that 12 times, I know I'm getting 1/8 of a teaspoonful of salt. This is a 1/4 teaspoonful measure. And I know that 1/8 of a teaspoonful of salt is enough to satisfy her, and she has a really salty taste, and yet at the same time not do her any damage. So that's really helpful. All right, and then 1/4 of a teaspoonful of freshly ground white pepper. And white pepper, because obviously, you know, otherwise it's going to show up. And a really good dousing of that, because I want it to have a little bit of a zip to it. I just don't want it to just lie there and be bland. Right? And that's done. Now, a little bit of cheese. Now, the cheese that you can use can either come from overseas or can be homegrown. This one here is the famous Parmigiano Reggiano. This comes from Reggio Emilia district in Italy. It is absolutely lovely. You can smell it from here. In the heart of the Parmesan cheese is just one of the most gorgeous things that you can smell. Now, this one is local. If you look to the two together, you see it's just a deeper yellow color, and it's got a black wax on the outside. Now, I'm going to use this for one perfectly good reason. It's half the price of the other one, and I'm basically Scottish, as you know. And what we're talking about is $13 a pound at the present moment for the imported, and about $6.69 a pound for the locally grown. And I find it quite good, you know. I've really tasted the two side by side, and although I understand total perfection, I also understand $6 a pound. All right, now, what I've done here is I've got it, I just want 1/4 cup, and this happens to measure it as you go along. And you just simply take a little slide back like that and just drop it down, and it's a very good way of being able to measure. You know, Julia Child, who I really love, has a little phrase which says, "You can eat anything if you eat it in moderation," you know. And Julia's right. She really is. I just want you to know that was her. But you see, the problem that I have with the statement is, how do you measure moderation? And it's terribly important to be able to be able to measure. So, I mean, little things that measure like that, I think, are very important when we come to fat, because they really piles up before you know where you are. Okay, in this copper bowl, I've got 1 egg white. Now, I don't want to beat it until it becomes a stiff froth. All I want to do is just to get just a little bit of air in it. That's really enough. And then pour that egg in on top. That's 1 only egg white. Stir it all together, and you have the mix. Perfectly well seasoned, and that's all there is to it. That will do it. The 1/4 teaspoonful of fat will flavor it terrifically. Now, here is one of the typical pie dishes. So you can use one of those or one of those foil ones, which you get from the supermarket. And just drop it down, all of that, into the dish and press it out over the bottom. Now, this is where you start molding the thing. And if you're going to mold it, just a little bit of a hint here, because it gets a bit sticky. Put the back of your hand in there, spread it out flat, put the back of your hand into water, and just press it out, turning the plate as you go. Press it towards the outside, just like that, okay? And if you keep on dropping your hands into the water, then it shouldn't stick. Press it up until it's got a nice lip and it's even over the whole base. Simple. You can do several of those at the same time. You know, if you're doing the extra meal thing, do several of them. They're rather fun that way. I'm just trying to think where there was another. There is a way that you can do this by having another plate just like this one and sort of pressing it down, and it looks really good. That is somewhere. Oh, I know where it is. I like hiding things from myself. Here we are. It's just as if you had a piece of you know, plastic and just pressed it down on the top like that. Give it a little shake, and you can form a perfect shape underneath, just like that one there. Of course, it really does help, you know, to get those little foil ones, not the heavy, rigid ones like this, and then you can stack them up one on top of the other and keep them. It really does work quite well. But when you do this, if you're going to freeze them, make sure you mold it like that and then put a wrapper around it and then freeze it straight away, because it can sour because of the cheese and the rice together. All right, now let's see about the filling. Filling, how about that? Here I've got 2 cups of corn. Now this is defrosted sweet corn on the top, the frozen stuff. And then, just to make it go round, 2 tablespoons full of the non-fat evaporated milk, skim milk. And then pop the lid on the top, if I can find the hole. Good. And now you turn it on to run it. Now, the manufacturers say, always keep your hand on it and never take your hand off and walk away. And I really appreciate manufacturers, and I think that they should be followed to the key. But I really don't have the time to be able to do that, so please behave yourself, all right? That takes about 5 minutes. In here, got an onion, and this onion will form the base part. Remember when we had a look at the filling, and whatever that filling could be? Well, this one, once more, as always, keeping the onion in the deep freeze to save the troubles, cutting it down very fine. And what I want to do is to have a good ½ cup of diced onion there, a good ½ cup. So I've got that little bit there, and I want to make sure that it's absolutely diced and no funny little bits, no fudging. And I don't know whether you ever fudge, but I mean by fudging, you know, where you start chopping at the end of the onion, which I have a tendency to do. And I've got slightly other than nice, perfect pieces of onion there. This is perfect pieces all the way through. Drop it down, and then add the other lot, which were done ahead of time. It doesn't matter if it's deep frozen, it won't harm the dish in any way at all, but it really is helpful from your point of view, especially if you're sensitive to it. And short. All right. Now, turning that around, keeping your eye on the manufacturers. I mean, after all, you know, you've got to put down, haven't you, that there could be a problem with it if there could be one. Here is a ½ teaspoonful of oregano, and that's dry, just in case it happens to be the season for you when you can't get fresh and You see me always saying fresh herbs, and you're saying, yeah, I can't get it. So I thought I'd show you that oregano is one of those herbs that you can use when they're dried. Here is broiled sweet pepper. If you can't find the jars of it, you can do it like this, put a slice on the top, and if you broil it well and truly, it chars and the skin comes off easily. And then you can just sort of collect that and drop it on the counter. And here, I want to get thin slices cut across and put it in. Now can you imagine if you were using Canadian bacon now, or ham, or pastrami? I mean, whatever it is that you really enjoy, and that isn't too fatty. Maybe smoked salmon. We've been it's always nice. And so just drop that on the top. So whatever that filling is, you're now stirring that. Just, in this case, the perfect mix of roasted peppers and oregano and onion together. Good. Now I think we can shut you up. Thank you. 5 minutes. Phew. All right, that's the thing. Let's have a look at the custard. And the custard I showed you earlier on is really incredibly simple. It's just a cup of the evaporated skim milk, a cup of that egg substitute, a quarter of a cup of grated cheese, just like the local Parmesan, which I would prefer, and then just bring in a little of the old French mustard, you know, the stuff that you knock on the side of the tank and said, pardon me, but do you have any poupon? And so just drop that, just a tablespoonful of that stuff in, and then 2 tablespoonsful of cilantro, of chopped cilantro. Now that is a herb that cannot be done, literally. I mean, it just will not work in any way, shape or form if it's dried. I know it's sold, and I'm sorry about that to the manufacturer, but it just, in my case, just doesn't work. So, when you've done this, just release the top, take out the blades, tap all the stuff off it. It's delicious. I've got a sweet tooth. I suppose you've probably noticed that. But I like my sweetness to come. Before I do this, where's my sieve? I've got a sort of sweet tooth, but I've sort of controlled it now. I get my sweetness out of Trina, and also the natural fruits and vegetables where I can get to it before it starts to get too refined. All right, so this is a beautiful flavor. Drop it down into the top. You could take an ordinary spatula and start forcing it through. You notice it's kind of crumbly. That's because it isn't cooked. You know, they are deep frozen. But in this way, I'm taking this thing, which I call a sock sieve. I know it sounds a bit odd, but this one pushes the corn through, and you get, this is where you get the 2/3 of a cup of puree. Now, when you've pushed it all through, and it takes that long, don't throw away, please don't throw away the top part, because that'll finish up in a soup and be perfectly good. So I'm going to keep that for soup later. Right, ready? And then just stir that in together. Now there is the custard. It's made. All you need to do is add a little pepper to that, and you're off and running. I don't think that's difficult. Huh? And here is the mix. So what you do is you now get your crust, and you just simply pop that mixture into the bottom, spread it out. Doesn't it look great? Nice color. And then pour on the custard. Now, put it into the oven, give it just 5 minutes, and it'll set up a little bit. It'll seep around. Then fill it up again on the rung of the oven. And do you know what you do? You'll get every morsel of this into it. It takes 25 minutes to bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you want to fiddle with it at the end, what you do is you just simply take some little strips of corn like that, put it down on the top, and flank it either side with little strips of red pepper, and make it radius all the way around the outside. I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. So we can stick that in the oven. That's not the way I'd normally do it, but I wanted to show you how it works. Okay, now, bingo. After that time, just let it, before you start serving it up, let it just settle a little bit, because if you don't, it's likely to ooze on you. Now, what do I mean by just settle? How about 5 minutes, you know, in a warm oven, turn the oven off, and there you are. Doesn't that look nice? And you see how it radiates around as a spoke in a wheel like that? Okay. Now, we'll take a slice through, and this one is rated for 1/3 slices. In other words, you're going to get 6 out. And would be a great idea if you could actually have a nice salad plate like this set up in advance, and then just nip it out, and that's what it will look like, just there. You want to see what it tastes like? Sort of sweet, but kind of nice. Come on. Well, of course, this sort of thing works out terrifically well as a brunch. I mean, most people have this sort of thing as a brunch. Do you have this as a brunch? Well, let's have a look at the classic. Now, this is one that you'd pick up at a local store, but, you know, the salad and the quiche. I mean, that's what it is. Now, this one here, I don't know, with the corn on the top, and a little strip of, I think it's kind of neat. Looks rather nice. And boy, I'll tell you, when you serve something up like that and people taste the rice on the side, that is different. The classic, this one here, would be 272, and we'd save just a few calories there, 218. This is where you save it. 15 grams of fat now drops to 4 overall, and that portion which is saturated is 7 there, and that's dropped to 2. And as you know, saturated fat is not a good idea. Calories from fat is 49%, and we've dropped that down to 16%. Now, 16 is very good news because that's just at the at the low end of prevention. If you really want to practice prevention for any reason, you don't have a problem at the moment, but you don't want to have one. It's a good idea. 174 in cholesterol, dropped down to 8, no problem there. 684 with sodium, this down to 405, which is well within reason, and 22 now goes up to 33 because we've got the rice in it. Right? Now, I love this. I mean, it really has a beautiful texture to it, and that's still just slightly warm. It sets up perfectly. It's got a cheesy flavor to it. Maybe I'd add just a little bit more pepper. I'm getting sort of, as I get older, I need to get, you know, a little bit of that. I'm not really getting old, but, you know, I need a little bit of that. So this with a salad on the side is just fabulous. So imagine the various things you could get up to for the people that you love. And don't forget, always use it, a springboard, and it's such a marvelous idea. Okay? All right, just as always, straight for the deep freeze and straight out. Now, you can actually do this. It's just an amazing thing. If you put it in one of these Ziploc bags and just give it a little tug like this, hey, it won't freeze or burn. It comes out beautifully. Now, when you leave it out, just leave it out for, obviously, for about 10-15 minutes, and it'll defrost and you'll be ready to go. All right, and this is what you could do. Now, this time, take a French loaf, all right, French bread like this one, and just cut thin slices, about that thin, and take some of that French mustard, which, by the way, is very high in salt, in sodium, so be careful with that. And just lay that in the bottom of the dish, all right? Just put a layer of the bread in the bottom there. Now, build a sandwich. Do you like Canadian bacon? Just put very thin slices of Canadian bacon on the top, and then some of the roasted pepper. Now, you can buy roasted pepper like this in a package, you know, in a glass jar, and it saves you all that bit of trouble. And honestly, I cannot really tell the difference between the two, done one way or the other. So when you've done that and pressed that all out together, then take another 4 slices of bread, lay those on the top, and this whole thing comes out at about 12% of calories from fat. There's about 124, just about 124 calories, just amazing. Now, what you can do is you put just 1/4 cup of cheese over the top like that. It helps it to poke through the crust when it's done, and then pour on the same custard. And you say, oh, but Graham, come on, now that's a lot to do. Oh, really? I mean, that was so simple to make that custard. But let's say it is. Then freeze the custard and bring that out. Now, it'll all sink down when it's put into the oven. Cook it in exactly the same way. It'll be ready in half an hour. When it comes out, it'll look just like this one here. All right? Just put a slice underneath it. This would be 1/6 slice. And, you could just have it without the salad. I was looking for my salad. And there, you see, you've actually got what looks for all the world like a ham and roasted pepper caramel. What's that? How bread, a French bread, and that marvelous creaminess of that, and the mustard at the same time, and that bacon really works well. Okay, just another meal in a flash. God bless. Well, Joanne, thanks so much. It was an absolutely splendid idea. Give her another hug there, okay? Bye-bye.